When I was a caregiver, the last thing I wanted was advice from anyone on how to be positive because the life that I lived was really challenging. And there were days when it felt impossible to find anything good. If you've listened to previous episodes, you know that Jenna and I talk about things like hope and gratitude and joy and cheerleaders and basically just being positive. And over time, I learned that practicing those things on the days that were less challenging made it easier for me to do that on the days that were really challenging. It didn't mean that everything was better and it didn't change our circumstances, but it did make life easier to deal with. It made it easier to deal with those challenging situations because of the mindset that I had that was more positive. And it also made me easier to be around.
I love that you include that point in this conversation that you're kind of taking responsibility for yourself and how others might respond to you by acknowledging that you're easier to be around if you have a better attitude just in general. I know the same thing is true for me, that it's not just always about my particular circumstances, but if I'm just having a bad day or a bad attitude, nothing's really that bad or serious in my life, but I'm having a bad day, that's going to affect all my interactions throughout the day, and um, maybe even more than a day, depending on how bad my attitude is. um, the other thing that I think was really significant that you mentioned is that you practiced, and I think it bears repeating. That's a really important point. Is this doesn't just happen. It is a practice, just like anything else in your life. You have to make it important enough to do it with a frequency that allows it to become a habit. And so when you said that you practiced on the good days, it made it easier on the bad days. It's a habit, really. It's a default. So I think that's really important. And I don't want to kind of gloss over that because it's such a significant point. This is a practice that hopefully becomes a habit.
Yep. And I can say that that's exactly what it was for me because there was a period of time when I wasn't practicing that. There were so many things going wrong. Life was out of control. We were just getting bad news after bad news after bad news. And Lance and I were both angry and bitter, and nobody wanted to be around us. And who could blame them? I don't want to be around people who are like that, regardless of what is causing that. There's no reason to take it out on everyone around you because everyone around you is not responsible for your circumstances.
I think we had maybe it was a previous episode we talked about, kind of being a porcupine. And I've definitely had those moments and times in my life where I was prickly and it was hard for people to get near me, even the people that wanted to help, wanted to be supportive. I think I was maybe in a place that wasn't so good, whether it was by choice or by circumstance, but I didn't allow people to get near me because I was prickly. And so I always talk about people being porcupines. And I think as supportive friends or loved ones, one of the things that we can do is really kind of pursue those people that are porcupines and encourage them that they don't need to be afraid, that they can put those little pokies down and let people get near them that actually want to help. But I get it. When you're going through challenging things, man, not the anger and resentment, bitterness, like that stuff can start to take over like a cloud. And I think today we're hitting on some of those practices, some of those habits that you can help build to keep those clouds kind of pushed back and help keep yourself in a place that doesn't allow you to become that porcupine.
Right. And one of the things that I do want to point out before we go into that is the point that you made about your community, the supportive community that you have, encouraging someone who is being a porcupine, that is done in the proper way, because just showing up and telling somebody that they need to change their attitude is not the way to go about that.
I would agree with that pretty wholeheartedly. I think that, yeah, you probably got to be pretty careful. And I think for me, what I've tried to do is just continue to show up. I think, and this episode isn't necessarily a conversation about how to be supportive to people who are struggling in this area, but I think it's a really important point to make. If you are that supportive loved one, just continue to show up. Know that this isn't about you, and this reaction that you're getting from the individual that's going through the challenge, that is not about you. That is not pointed at you. Don't take it personally. Just continue to be supportive and let them walk through whatever they're walking through. You can model behaviors, you can demonstrate behaviors without criticizing the maybe the reactions that you're getting from your loved one. So I think it's important to point out, like, just continue to show up and model the attitudes and behaviors that you think might be most helpful to them, and they'll see that and they'll recognize it. It's just, I think sometimes you just have to kind of take your time and just walk through those dark times with them.
I think that that's great advice. That's a great way to put that. And, by the time that you and I met, I think that I was already at a point where I had learned how to do this. My mindset was pretty good at that point. I was still struggling a lot, but Lance and I were living with gratitude and hope and joy. And we tried not to take out our frustrations on anyone else. So by the time you met me, we were already at that place. But you have always explained things so well. So I think you're the perfect person to share your insight on this.
Well, I certainly don't get this right all the time, but I have devoted a great deal of time and energy into cultivating a positive mindset. And also, I I just am naturally a positive person. I have always been an probably overly optimistic individual. I've probably been even toxically positive at times. So that's been kind of my lesson in life, is to learn how to kind of tone that back and not be like legitimately offensive to people that are going through challenging things, because I would tend to go in and be like, oh my gosh, there's so many good things to be thankful for. Just see it on the bright side. And realizing over the course of my life that that's not exactly helpful to people that are really in hard places. So learning how to kind of tone that back. But I think what I have done is cultivate a mindset to say, how can I take a tough situation for me personally and turn it into something positive? And there were a few things kind of that I came up with when we were talking about developing mindset. And one of them was switching just the language in your own head. So one of the things, and this is useful in a caregiving situation, this is useful in parenting, this is useful in a marriage, a friendship, any kind of relationship you'll have, switching the verbiage from I have to I get to. So seeing the positives, the good in your life. And so using your example of your life with Lance, you would switch, oh, I have to help him get dressed today. Something that you probably did every day for a long time.
Oh my gosh. I can just interject here that I felt so grateful that I got to have that time with him. I am so grateful for that. And that was my mindset.
It's imperative, I think, when we're going through challenges. And mine was developed from taking care of kids. Like, why do I have to change this dirty diaper? To, oh my gosh, I get this little perfect human that I get to take care of. That's what a blessing for me. And that sounds so overly simplistic, but it really did change my perspective. So I didn't grow resentful, I didn't grow bitter, and I was able to keep any of that from splashing out onto my kids or the people around me. And that's what you found is with Lance, you were able to keep that from like overflowing onto him, even if you felt it.
Well, in the beginning, when I had to quit my job, because I was 37 when I quit my job to stay at home and take care of him. And that resentment did start building because there were a lot of negative things happening at that time. And so developing that positive mindset and being able to look at it as um, we still were dealing with the losses. I still grieved all those losses, all the years that he was sick. But being able to look at the situation and think about how fortunate I was to still have him in my life, to be able to spend this time with him made all the difference.
And I think kind of building onto that, I remember this shift in my mindset when I would deal with tough things. Because there were seasons in my life where I was going through really challenging things, and then other people around me, well-meaning people, would pile on top of that. And I had to deal with more things than just whatever issues or circumstances were in the core of my life. There were these external forces that were coming in and creating more drama or more hardship or more stress in my life. And maybe it was just people around me that needed affirmation. We'll just use that as an example. Somebody that was coming in and piling on me, they needed affirmation and attention. And I would just get to this breaking point where I was so angry, like, I'm dealing with so much stuff and you need attention from me. You're an adult. And I had to shift the mindset from why do I, and partly I think it was because I did maintain a positive attitude because I was a positive person. So people were like, oh, she's the one to go to with all my problems because she'll tell me something nice. And why do I always have to be the person that people come to talk about this stuff and dump all their garbage on me? Why do I always have to be in this position? And I remember shifting that to maybe I've been called to this. And that one thing really helped me to differentiate those circumstances, those times, those moments in my life where I was in a tough situation to say, like, am I called to this? Because if I am, I need to take this on. Is this the path for my life? I need to take this on and I need to do well. But if this isn't something I'm called to, you know, walk away. But that realizing that there are hardships in your life that are your calling. And if that's your calling, that's what you need to focus your attention and energy on, and you'll be okay.
Yep. And I felt like that was my calling with Lance.
I think another thing that was really pivotal in my ability to kind of change my own attitude and change my perspective and really adjust my mindset was realizing that like everybody has hardships and challenges. I am not special. Everybody is dealing with something challenging. And for everyone that I perceived as having it easier than I did, there was always somebody who had it harder than I did. So understanding that it's not a contest. We're not here to compare who had the hardest life, who had the easiest life. And if you're constantly focused on other people and their situations, it kind of robs you of your own ability to see the good things in your life. So I think like that was really pivotal for me to say like, okay, there may be somebody who has it easier, but there's certainly somebody who has it harder. So I need to just focus on my own life and my own situation and adjust my mindset and my attitude to meet whatever hardship or challenge is coming at me right now.
And for me, I looked at that as putting it in perspective, not comparing your life to other people, but also putting it in perspective when you do find yourself comparing your life to someone else's is that every single element of their life is different than yours. How could you possibly compare the two?
And you can't know. You can't know everything that's going on in everyone's life. So it's an unfair comparison, I think, no matter what you do. So I just think that for, at least for me, and I don't know if you found this in your life as well, but just keeping myself focused on what I could control in my life, which was primarily my attitude. Like about the only thing you really do have control over is your attitude, because you can't control your necessarily the things that happen to you, right? But you can control your attitude and you can control your mindset ultimately. And so I think that's what it was. It's like, stop looking at what is easier or more challenging, because A, you have no idea, and B, it doesn't matter, and C, you can't do anything about it. So focusing on what you can control, it just kind of releases you from either guilt that someone else has it harder than you, or jealousy or resentment that someone has it easier than you. You just focus on you and your little situation.
Yep. And we had to do the same thing. And that really helped.
One last thing that I kind of thought of as we were going over the idea of mindset is just, it kind of ties into that focusing on what you can control, is avoid looking to others for validation, for affirmation, for advice, for answers, to the extent that you rob yourself of the opportunity to know how strong you are. Because, as we've mentioned in previous episodes, you don't just come into this world strong or weak. Like, those are things that have to be cultivated and developed over time. And the only way you can get to know how strong you are is by going through a challenge and overcoming it. And then you see your strength. Oh, I did that hard thing. I carried that load. I am that strong. And so when you're constantly looking for external validation, and I'm not talking about support from friends and loved ones, when you just need someone to vent to, or you need someone to just share with, or you just need another human to listen to. I'm talking about not ever being able to make a decision without asking 12 other people, or having to share all the things you've done so that you can hear good job, good job, good job 1,000 times. When you outsource that sense of your own strength, your own ability, um, I think you just rob yourself of that knowledge of your own capacity for overcoming and for victory, or just growing, right? Because if nothing else, you're going to grow through a situation because you're a different person now for having gone through it. So I think, like, just keeping the focus on overcoming the obstacle or the challenge, and really leaning into your own, I think, just your own knowledge of who you are and what you've overcome to this point, and pushing through that next obstacle. I think it's so crucial in helping you to cultivate that mindset of, I can do this and things are going to work out.
And that ties in with something we've talked about in another episode of, you are the expert on you. So asking everyone else their opinions, they're going to give you their opinions based on what they know, which is limited knowledge of you, and also their own opinions based on their own experiences. And you're not living their experience. So you really need to trust yourself and trust your instincts.
Agreed. And I just think this conversation about mindset cannot be overstated, I think, because the importance of a positive mindset, or I think the practice of cultivating a positive mindset, is applicable to literally every human that's ever walked this planet, and everyone that will in the future. It's something that will create a better future and a better path forward for literally everyone.
Oh, I love that so much. So just to recap, a mindset in what we just talked about begins with changing I have to I get to. Why am I the one who always has to I'm the one who was chosen to. Not comparing yourself to others and not looking to everyone else for the answers because you're stronger than you think you are. Well, I appreciate you having this conversation with me, Jenna. This has been great, and I hope that it's helpful to anyone listening. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.
All righty, we'll see you.